I'll call this meeting to order of the House Appropriations Committee for the purpose of presentation action on House Bill 94. The chair recognizes Representative Ben Harbin, Chairman of the House Appropriations Committee.
Thank you, Chairman Parsons. Good morning. Well, we're finally here. Hope everyone enjoyed their 2 weeks. We've got a busy next 2 days. I do want to announce before we start, those of you on the Education Subcommittee, that meeting today at 9:30 has been canceled. So she will notify you when the next meeting will be scheduled. All right, we're going to begin. Everybody's got their tracking documents. That's what we're going to work from. I'm just going to next change is page 11. 81601 is the 3%. Available to you very quickly. So we think this is a good contract approved by Leg Services. This is the funding for that contract. Next change, page 7. 421, 431, and 441 are reductions in the Department of Audits. These are monies that were found, we were able to find through and they have through operational efficiencies they've had at the Department of Audits. So there's slight reductions there. Next change, page 8. 511, let me cover this now. You will see changes, common changes throughout judicial. Judicial comes directly to us. The judicial branch had decided a 4% pay raise for their state employee or for their employees. We have reduced that to a 3% so that they will be equal to the rest of the state employees. So there will be this will be a reduction common throughout judicial branch. 516, reinstate funding for 2 positions eliminated in FY05. We are FY05. This is we're not saying no to these, but we're just saying we don't need to do that in the mid-year. This is the end of a fiscal year. This is the amended 07 budget. We've only got a few months left in this fiscal year, so we think that's something we should come back to in the 08 budget. Next change, page 9, 601 is the 3%. 641 and 642, these contracts we just don't think should be, we don't need to begin those again at the end of a fiscal year. These are ones we are considering. Chairman Chuck Martin and Public Safety is considering those in the 08 budget. 644, 645, 646, 647. You'll notice this is funding for the final quarter. They had it in there for the final 6 months. By the time we get this budget to the governor and signed, there will only be about a quarter left in this fiscal year. 647, I'm sorry, is one for the child support. This is a legislation that we passed a few years ago. This provides the support needed for complying with that legislation, $200,000. Next change is page 11. 811, 821 are both pay raise. That's the 3%. 815, provide funds to add assistant district attorneys in Cobb and Dublin judicial circuits. We are adding these judges. However, they will not be on the bench by the end of this fiscal year, so we are saying yes to those, but they will not need that funding until the beginning of the next fiscal year. 824, this is provide funds for base adjustment as a result of FY206 veto. We believe that this is a better and a more accurate figure. We think this will allow them to finish out the year, and that is why that cut was made there. Next change, page 13. 1001, 1001 is the pay raise issue. That's 3% again. 1041, provide funds for counties to courthouse security. This $1.5 million is not new. This was in the 08 budget. We are pulling it forward because the money was available. We think security in those courthouses is too important, and we want to begin that as quickly as possible. So this money will go out in the 07 budget instead of having to wait till July 1. 1043, 1044. Provide funds for step increase for secretaries and to restore budget reduction in 2005 are both items. We are not saying no at this time, but we're going to review those in 08. We just think that's a better time for those. Next change, page 17. 1432. Add funding for Homeland Security, agricultural, food defense positions. Fairly self-explanatory. An agriculture manager, 2 operation analysts, and administrative assistant. We all understand with Homeland Security, one of the key things we've got to do is protect our food supply, and that will be the purpose of these additions. 1433, redirect $150,000 in bond funds. This is 5-year bonds that were approved in 2005 as part of 1181, and this will move it from near the 5th runway to Tifton. What's happening is that 5th runway, the scales will not work properly because of the vibrations from that runway. So this, we think, is a better place to move that to, and we're just asking to redirect those funds. This is not new money, redirecting those bond funds. Next change, page 19. 1631, provide two time-limited positions to fund a local update of census addresses. What you'll see there is a slight reduction, but that is the actual amount that is needed. Next change is 1672. And that is, what these are is local assistance grants that were issued last year by this body. And they were either duplicates, word changes that need to be made, and so those changes are done here, and that resulted in a reduction in expenditures of $44,000. Next one, 1673, we're redirecting some excess local assistance grant funding, $235,000, adding $15,000 for the Autry Mill historical restoration in the city of Johns Creek. Last year we had gone through Fulton County for that local assistance grant. Fulton County is ineligible to provide grants due to audit irregularities, so we are just changing where that's going through. It's going through the Johns Creek, the municipal city of Johns Creek now. So that is really just a change that we voted, or changing where that money is going through, and it was done, voted for by this body last year. 1613.2. What you'll notice here is $40,500,000. We are changing that to $46,550,000. This is not new money. We are pulling this money from the Department of Economic Development, and you'll see us move that figure at that $6 million to a 0 in economic development. We are just including all the KIA monies in one place. 1614.1. This is Chairman Parsons and his subcommittee did an excellent job. This is the land conservation money. It's $50 million. We are reducing that to $34 million. And part of the reason for that reduction is we are asking that the locals be a player in this. We're asking for 1/3 match in each of these projects. We think that's fair. As we talk about partnerships and working together with communities, I think this is encouraging those communities that want to conserve their properties, encouraging them to be a part of that and be a team player with us in the state. So $34 million there, that reduction of 16. Next change, page 21. $1701 and $1702. This is the upper payment limits, and then the Medicaid expenses, pre-fund of Medicaid expenses. This is up to 73. You'll notice that the 1701 is a slight reduction. 1702 has been increased. This is to cover the peach care. This is what we're putting forward. We're rolling forward for peach care until the federal government comes through. We have had positive indications that the federal government will meet their obligation, and until such time, this will be available so that we can ensure that peach care, this very successful program, continues. 1703 and 1704 are just accounting measures. You'll notice those there. We're just shifting some things for fraud compliance that they are wanting to shift out of administration, creating some positions with money they already have, which we think will create some savings, and that savings you will see is reflected on the next page, and I will get to that in just a minute. 1708, reflect actual roll forward number as validated by the internal auditors, state auditor. This is federal money, and this is just an alignment for accounting purposes. 1711, you'll see a reduction there because, again, this is the end of a fiscal year. They had 6 months funding. Chairman Chanel and his subcommittee did a great job of reminding everybody we'll probably have about 3 months left in this fiscal year when we get through with this budget. So this is 3 months funding for those positions. 1731, you'll see the community health centers, federally qualified community health centers in 6 different locations across the state. These centers, as Chairman Chanel has pointed out, are $250,000 one-time investment from us. Then the federal government operates these. These centers are great primary care facilities for many of our rural areas, many needy areas. They take everything from those insured to those uninsured. This is, I think, a positive part of our health plan, trying to create a good quality health care environment for all Georgians to have access throughout the state. 1732, again, these facilities you'll see all over the state. They're $250,000 each. This is for behavioral health. So this will try to also include that as part of our health care plan. And these, again, are federally qualified, $250,000 one time. Next one you'll see is the 1733. This $750,000 is the remaining portion of connecting all of these health centers so that they can communicate across the state. We put $750,000 in last year. Integrating those facilities will cost $1.5 million, and this is the remaining portion of that. So we have approved one half, and this is the second half, and we're asking you to approve the second half of it. Next change, page 22. 1743, you'll notice there the governor asked for $10 million for disproportionate share hospital funds. A few years ago, or 2 years ago, we put it at 14, and we are restoring that back to 14 again this year. So we're adding $4 million there for those hospitals, and that increases the drawdown as well. 1751, reflect cost avoidance. This is the figures I talked about earlier, where we're going to add those positions through administration, not new money, but this is the savings we think those positions will bring in when they go in and work to find the fraud and duplication within our Department of Community Health Services. 1771, this is a new figure that's we had to come up with. This is to add funds to cover peach care growth. This is our state portion. What's happened is with the cutoff March 11th, there was a spike in enrollment. We are now over 306. We're now over 306,000 children insured in our peach care program. So this is a state portion that will be necessary to cover those children for the remainder of the year. So we have had a spike, but the state is continuing to meet its obligation, and working with the federal government, we think they will continue to meet theirs. 1791, provide regular operating funds. This is a $39,000 request from the Board of Medical Examiners. We're saying no to that at this time due to some legislative intent. We think that this is a proper way for them to operate their board in the manner that they see fit. This was we'll just call this their request. Next change, page 23. If you look at 1801 and 1851, we have zeroed those items out. We are saying yes to them. However, through Chairman Martin and the Public Safety Subcommittee's very hard work, we have discovered that there are reserve funds sitting out there in accounts that were not coming back in through the general fund, and those have been estimated from 10 to 15 million. We think the department can do their job and do it properly, continue to meet the needs that they say they have, but they can use existing money and not spend any additional taxpayers' money. So we're asking them to use their funds for these utility charges and health care costs. Next change, page 25. $20.2.1, add funds for New Brunswick Customer Service Center. We have a backlog there, and this in Southeast Georgia has been suffering because of that and their CDL licensing, and all we're doing here is adding the $1.5 million, and this we think will help ease that backlog that we have there. Next change, page 26. 2131. First Foundation. Jay Neal and Majority Leader Keene have talked to me about this extensively. This was something important to them. This was the First Foundation distribution of books for children age 0 to 5. We understand the importance of education in those early years, and this foundation is operating now, I believe, in 40 counties, and this just allows them to expand because they've been very successful. Next change, page 27. 2221 is the $6 million I told you earlier for the Kia that we moved into community affairs earlier. 2241 1, provide funds for economic development equipment for the Hertie Foundation. This is a roll forward. This is in your '08 budget document. We are just moving it forward because monies were available now. We do receive some federal match, and we thought it was better to go ahead and put this into the '07 document since the money was available. 2271, provide funds for Civil War commemoration preparation for Resaca Battlefield. We have reduced that from $5 million to $3 million. That is a more accurate figure. Chairman Rogers and his subcommittee did a jam-up job of researching this and finding out that this was a better figure and what was actually needed. 2272, Civil War Heritage Trails Project. All of these projects, 2272 down to 2279, are tourism and economic development projects that were requested by different members of the subcommittee. All of them are worthy causes, and we believe, and most all of them have a match that comes with them, and we are asking you to support those in this document. 2210-1, Georgia Golf Hall of Fame. This Hall of Fame only received about 7% of its funding, operational funding, from the state of Georgia, whereas the other Hall of Fames were receiving anywhere from 50 to 65%. They were in fear of closing if they were not able to get some of this funding back up. We are just trying to get them on equity with some of the other Hall of Fame authorities. 22121, 22131. These are the Music Hall of Fame and Sports Hall of Fame. These requests were made by the subcommittee for some operational expenses they have run short on in this fiscal year. Next change, page 28. 2311, under the academic coach in the Department of Education, you'll see a slight reduction. This is the correct figure that we're able to determine that of the amount of money that will not be utilized under this program. This does not hurt the program in any way or hurt anything in the Department of Education in any way. This is the correct figure, as we'll say, that Chair Lady Jones was able to find when she was working with her subcommittee. Next, 2321. This is something that's been requested by many of you. This is the add funds for engineering and installation of a sewage treatment facility at the FFA camp in Covington, Future Farmers. This is a 50-year-old facility, and these needs are required because of EPD pressure that they're going to have if we don't update that facility. They could actually close that facility if we don't meet our obligation and do the job of getting that facility up to date. Next change is 2341. This is to provide funds to promote the development of charter schools by providing financial assistance for planning grants, facility improvement, renovation and construction, and equipment purchases. This is $5 million that will go statewide to help those charter schools that have started and those that are looking to begin with equipment purchases and other things that sometimes aren't funded to make sure that those charter schools are able to begin and do the job of helping to educate Georgia's children. Next change, 2318-1. Add funds to provide 10% salary increase for new teachers achieving national board certification. What we've got is these are new projections. Our new projections should suggest that we're going to have a shortfall in this funding if we don't do something. Working with the Department of Education, we were able to find is $400,000 money was needed to help offset some of the deficit. 2320.1, provide funds for local school systems for children in foster care to comply with last year's bill of Senate Bill 618. This holds harmless the state facilities so that they can educate those children who are in some of our foster care. 2320.2, align funding for high-performing principals based on projected expenditures. You'll see a reduction there of about $100,000. This is actual amount that should be reduced by based on the number of high-performing principals that have applied. This will still support the program, but we don't need the money there if you don't have the principals there because it has to be expended during that fiscal year. So this is the actual amount needed. Next change, 2325-1, correcting an error at the Downing Clark Residential Treatment Center. This was an FTE count error, and we are just correcting it there. 2325-2, add funds to correct training experience calculation error for Chickamauga schools. Again, it's just an error that we are correcting. We do this every year with different systems. When you have so many systems, you're bound to have a few errors, and we're trying to hold these school systems harmless by correcting those here. 2325-3, provide funds to correct an FTE classification error for QB middle school programs for school systems in Barrow, Dawson, Hancock, Johnson, and Walker counties. You'll notice that, again, there is just correcting those errors for that system, those systems. Next change, page 29. Reduce funds based on projection expenditures under the state reading and math program. The funds for this program are now QBE generated. So the balance in this old program can be redirected. This is money that was sitting there that they will not need because the program is now QBE, the funding is now QBE generated based on the number of students. 23-321, provide funding for minor repairs and renovations at 3 schools: Georgia Academy for the Blind, the Atlanta Area School for the Deaf, the Georgia School for the Deaf. This is an 08 item that we again are bringing forward into 07 to go ahead and meet those needs immediately. These schools are in dire need, to put it mildly. So we're asking you to support that at this time, and we will bring that forward, and it will not be in the 08 document. Next change, page 30. Georgia Military Pension Fund. Increased funding for Georgia Military Pension Fund to the level required by the latest actuarial report. Again, this was an 08 item we are bringing forward. We believe that this helps us to meet the benefits of those servicemen and women by moving it forward and get that money there, get that money available quickly. Next change, page 31. Under Forest Protection, provide funds for 3 new crawlers and 24 environmental cab kits for crawlers. This is a safety issue for those firefighters when they go out. We're adding $569,000. When they go out and put out these fires, a lot of these crawlers don't have cabs on them, which endangers those firefighters. So the 24 that we have in the state that we can retrofit with the cab crawlers are being done. So this is a statewide project. The ones being purchased in the future will have the cab on them, so these crawlers will protect our state employees as they're trying to protect us from those fires. Next change is page 32. This is the $11 million. You saw the revenue estimate increase on the first page. A group of us went down to Americus a few weeks ago, or about a week ago, actually. I guess it just seems longer. But the devastation down there was pretty amazing. But what was more amazing was how those people had come together. And that's one of the things about Georgia, I said, is that in times of crisis, we put everything aside and we come together. We put all of our differences aside and we try to do what's right. And this is our portion to bring down that federal money so that those people can get back to some normalcy very quickly. We still probably will do some other things because their hospital has been completely devastated and destroyed. And in a community like that large of a community in the middle of a rural area like that, they need their health care. And we've got to help them, I think, in some way. So you may see some other things in 08, but right now this is our $11 million to draw down that federal money so that we can help those people get back to a normal life, something we sometimes take for granted until it's been taken away from us. Next change, page 33. $2702 is really just an accounting measure. You'll notice there's no money there, but was from the flex amendments. We're just having to show that here for accounting purposes only. Next, 27.4.1, adult addictive disease services. You'll see that has been reduced to 0 from the $9 million, but what we're doing is transferring that into the proper programs. You'll see $4.5 million I'll recognize in just a few minutes in 2 other places. So it's not an actual cut, it's just putting those into the proper programs. 27.6.1, adult essential health treatment services, increased funding for the purchase factor concentrate for people with hemophilia who lack Medicaid, Medicare, and other health insurance. They had some catastrophic cases over this fiscal year, and this really just allows them to bring them back whole. So those people who don't have the coverage, who have hemophilia, this will allow them to continue to get treatment and services. So this $450,000 was requested because of some catastrophic cases that happened this year. 27.8.1, 27.18.1 are the $4.5 million. I'm going to go and point those out now from 27.4.1. You'll see those. We just divided that $9 million up into 2 places in the proper programs. 27.12.1, provide additional funding for the American Association of Adaptive Sports Programs. This is $250,000, a small amount for a program that allows these disabled children to compete in athletics. For those of you that saw the basketball game where they took on the House, it was really not much of a basketball game. It was kind of like watching the Globetrotters take on the Generals, except we would have been an embarrassment for the Generals. So this is to continue that program because these kids are athletes and they deserve to have every opportunity that every other child has to participate in athletics across the state. Child Welfare Services 27.17.1, decreased TANF funding for prevention of unnecessary placement activities. This has just been moved to the proper program of 27.27.1. This is a $500,000 reduction in other funds. 2721-1, provide funding for adult day services licensure as provided in House Bill 318. This is from the 2003 session, something we passed. It was never funded. This $400,000 will fund this so that this crucial safety net for our elderly across the state, they will have this safety net and they will be protected as the intention of that legislation, but it had never been funded, so we're funding it here. 2721-2, provide one-time funding for the expansion of the Ruth, I'm assuming, is that Bike, buddy? Bick. The Ruth Bick Adult Daycare in Savannah. This completes last year's funding, the $25,000, so that should take care of that. Next, 2723-1, provide funding for research grant to discover proactive therapies for pandemic flu and other pathogenic viruses in collaboration with the University of Georgia. This is research money, this addition of $1 million to help us in making sure that if we were to have a pandemic flu outbreak, that we are properly set up to protect the citizens of Georgia. And you'll notice that 2723-2, provide funding for antiviral medications and treatment of pandemic flu. We said yes to $7 million. $15 million, based on the research of some study committees and others, was too much. This pandemic flu vaccine, or not vaccine, I'm sorry, antiviral courses will only last for like 3 to 5 years. It depends on who you ask. And so to store too many of them actually hurts us. The federal government is going to provide us with 1.3 million courses. This will purchase 406,000 courses, so we will have 1.7 million courses with this purchase. So actually, this is not hurting us in any way. It's making sure that we have the proper amount, but not over-purchasing, because we don't want to waste taxpayers' money by having something that might not ever be used either. Page 34. 2725-1, provide funding for specially equipped bus to perform sickle cell anemia testing throughout the state of Georgia. This is a mobile testing bus, or mobile testing facility, and it's a cost-effective means to provide access for these people who are at risk of sickle cell or who have it. It's a $300,000 addition. 2721-1, this is the move I talked about in 2717-1. The $500,000 in other funds moved to the proper place. 2732-1, infant and child health promotion. Provide additional funding for babies born healthy. We were asking for $1 million. They're in risk of a shortfall. They have a huge waiting list. This prenatal care actually helps us so these children are born healthy, which reduces our cost under Medicaid and Peach Care and all those other things. So we think that is a good expenditure for that money at this time. Next is 2740.1, provide funding for DFACS offices, expansions, renovations, and relocations in the following counties. All of these counties are part of DHR's recommendations. They have a list, and they were pulled from there. And without regular means of addressing these facilities' needs, they aren't able to be done. So we have the available funds and are taking care of some of those in this document. Next is 2745-1, provide one-time funding to the Children's Advocacy Centers of Georgia for web-based case tracking system. This will allow them all to have one central computer system which they can communicate with, and will be able to collect this data and have it available to each other. So we think this is a good way to spend that money to help those systems in protecting our children. Next change is 2749-1, provide funding for the Sexual Offender Registry Review Board. This funding is put in because of the legislative mandate we had last year. This allows that mandate to continue forward and them to meet the needs with the additional costs that they have. So we're asking you to add $336,000 to this review board. Next change, page 37. Provide funding for the KidsNet System of Care Initiative. This is a multi-agency program with tremendous success. And the data is expanding to, this is actually asking us to expand that to 3 more regions. The feds have supported us with $7 million to date, and this keeps at-risk children out of residential care. So this is a good way for us to try to make sure that those foster programs, those foster care programs, our emergency shelter centers aren't inundated with children. This allows us to keep them out of those type programs. So we think this is a good expense, and the federal government has been a partner in this so far. Next change, page 41. $34.10.1. We've done this a few times in the past. Provide funds for spraying of aquatic plants at Lake Blackshear. This is a seasonal need that tends to come up every few years. This helps us to keep this recreation facility and one of Georgia's finest resources, a viable place to have fun and fish and do those things that so many of us enjoy doing. But if we don't do this, we could lose that lake because of the aquatic growth we're having down there. Next is 3410-3. This is the Go Fish program. We have reduced that to $5 million, scaled it back, so to say. And what's really sad is it took y'all a while to catch that. This meets all the ramp needs that we have. There are 5 ramps. This will meet those needs. What we're delaying with this is the center and the hatchery, and that will come at later consideration. So we'll ask you to talk about that with us, and we will work on it. But right now, we think those ramps will be taken care of with this amount of money. That will take care of the ramp needs for this program. Next is 3413-1. Provide funds to the Georgia State Games Commission to facilitate athletic achievement and completion among handicapped children. This is a regional park complex that is being developed for handicapped children, which again will allow them to participate in athletics. And we hope that you'll help support us in that request. Next change is page 44. $37.51 under Public Safety Department. You'll see the 3% salary adjustment. And what this is, these are people who when the House initiated our pay increase last year, additional pay increase for our public safety officers all across the state, these officers were not included in that. It was really an oversight. So we're asking you to help us clarify that today and let those officers know that we think that they are important to the state of Georgia, that public safety is not something we just talk about. We actually put the money there to do it. And we're asking you to add $175,227 for that issue here. Next is 3752. Provide 100 standard trooper cars. The high mileage trooper cars, they have a large number of them because over the past few years we've not been able to purchase them like we needed to. We're asking you to support us in purchasing 100 additional cars for those officers. This will allow them to replace those high mileage cars, which have become fairly ineffective as they continue to be used and used and used. So this is a good move for public safety as well. 37.5.3, provide funds for the African American law enforcement retirement. This is something that this House has been a leader in. Representative Willie Talton, Representative Tyrone Brooks, who have come to us. This is the $122,000 that will be needed to allow the inclusion of former officers who were denied access into these retirement benefits. And I think this is not just a good gesture. This is putting our money where our mouth is and saying that we truly are. We truly do want you to participate. And in Georgia, there should be no colors. We're all in this together. And these public officers, public safety officers, we're out there trying to protect us. And now it's our turn to step up to the plate and show them we appreciate it. Next up is page 45. You'll see a reduction of administration funding under 3811 for Public Service Commission. We believe there's some cost-saving measures that have occurred there. We think this $100,000 reduction will not affect any operations, but will allow us to move that money and support some of the other initiatives that we have in this document. Next change, page 46. $39.41, provide funding to complete the Sutton Dining Hall at Rock Eagle. We have provided a portion of that funding over the past 2 years, I think, and this actually will allow us to complete that dining hall at Rock Eagle, which is very important to all of our 4-Hers across the state. Next is 39.81, provide one-time funding for agricultural technology research program to replace aging ion high-pressure liquid chromatograph. I cannot pronounce this. It's $45,000 needed to operate the program. Old equipment, not reliable. Next, 3913.1 and 3913.2. These are public library priorities across the state. We're just asking you to support those. We have the funds available. This is maintenance, repairs, structural damages, things like that they need the funds for so they can continue operations in these libraries across the state. Next, 3914.1 and 3914.2 provide funding for 3914.1 is provide funding Georgia State University to conduct a planning study for South Fulton. 3914.2 provide funding for Carl Vinson Institute to conduct study on development of cities and townships. South Fulton was already in operation, so this $50,000 is to allow them to go ahead and continue moving forward with what they're doing and look at their studies and make sure that if they do create that city, that it is done properly. The next one, 3914-2, is really something we have had so many cities and townships coming up and counties, and I think you may see that changing here, that have come up as issues that we've discussed. We want to have Carl Vincent study this and give us some feedback on it. What are the effects? Are we doing it the right way? What happens when we create these? So that we're asking you to do this $500,000 for study so that we can make sure before we move forward with any of these that we are doing what's in the best interest of all Georgia, not just a few citizens in some areas. Next, 3914-3, provide funding for infrastructure needs at the UGA Griffin campus. This is $1.3 million that John Yates and David Knight, Representative David Knight, Representative John Yates have come to us with. This is needs. The needs actually a little greater, but we're going to be trying to work with the Senate to find additional money. But this $1.3 million will make sure that that campus continues to improve and continues to educate those children and actually to relieve some pressure from the Athens campus. Next, 3919-1, provide funding for the Water Policy Planning Center in Albany State. This is something we have funded in the past, and as water becomes a bigger priority, as we continue to grow very quickly, and quality of life in Georgia is based on the water and our resources. So this $200,000 will allow them to continue doing the job they do for our water policy planning throughout the state, and especially in southwest Georgia. Next is 3919-2. You'll see provide pre-design funding for the Medical College of Georgia Dental School. It's $5 million. It's a big ask, but we only have one dental school in the state. No other public, no other private. And the building they're in is outdated. This has been the #1 request from the medical college and a priority request from the Board of Regents, and we're asking you for the pre-design money here so we can move forward on this. The federal government has stepped forward and is looking to bring some money in as well, so we need to move quickly so that we can show our support so that we can draw down those federal dollars as well on this program, on this project. Next up, provide funding for Fort Valley State University Cooperative Development Energy Program in order to help increase the number of minority professionals in the areas of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. This is 3919-3. That's self-explanatory. And what we're trying to do there, this is $100,000. Energy expertise is becoming more and more of a priority, and this is a good move for us in the state, and I ask you to support that. And if you'll look on 3919-4, we have eminent scholars that have been on wait list. The money has been waiting for our matching money. It's been there for a while. We're asking you to support us with 3 of those, and one of those is a renewable energy eminent scholar at Georgia Southern University. Then we have a Georgia Institute of Technology, Civil Engineering, and Georgia State University Law Eminent Scholars Program. So these asks have been there for a while. The money has been waiting, and we're asking you to support with our portion at this time. Next is 3919-7, provide funds to the University System of Georgia Health Plan to meet projected need for 2007. There's a slight reduction of $500,000. This amount we think is the amount that's actually needed to meet their health care needs. So we're asking you to help us in making that change. Page 48. Homeowner tax relief grants. The governor had taken a reduction of $5 million. Our study committee, or our subcommittee, and Chairman Parsons, looking at this, found an additional $2 million. This does not affect that grant in any way. Those tax cuts will still exist for all citizens of Georgia, but the money was building up in there, and we believe that additional $2 million is available and should be pulled instead of just sitting there. It can be used for projects that we have throughout this document and meet the needs of Georgians. So next, page 49. Secretary of State. 4111, provide funds for Silver-Haired Legislature. Many of you get these requests every year. You know what the Silver-Haired Legislature is. You know what they do. They do great work. They help a lot of our elderly people across this state to participate in the legislative process and come forward so that they can offer up those needs that they understand they have, sometimes quicker than we do. And this is a $50,000 request that they had, and we're asking you to support it. Next is 4152, provide funding for an independent audit of Georgia's elections procedures, guidelines, and security measures. And next, I want to go to 4161. This is also funding for an independent audit of professional licensing boards to improve customer service. We want to perform these audits now to ensure that our state's integrity in these processes are brought forward from our proposal. Basically, we want to make sure ensure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, because the things that we have asked them to do will actually make the state better, and we just want to audit their performance to make sure they're doing those proper things. Next is State Ethics Commission. They are being forced to move again And there's an additional cost to that move, and we're supporting a portion of that move cost at $115,000, and we're asking you to help us there. Next, page 51. $43.31, this is just a swapping of funds on the redirect excess funds from HOPE grant program to Georgia Military College Scholarship Program to fund additional students returning from military deployment. What's happened is those students were called up to Iraq, the scholarships went away, and this is just redirecting those funds. It's not an additional cost to make sure that they can continue their college opportunities when they get back. Next up, page 53. Technical and adult education, you'll see just one change here. 4541, provide funds for Moultrie Technical College Career Academy, $750,000. This is an unstructurally sound roof, and we've got to do something to address it so they can continue the education down at this school. So we're asking you to provide this $750,000 so that we can continue to meet the needs of those students. Next change, page 54. Department of Transportation, you're going to see a few changes here. Chairman Rogers does a great job, asks a lot of questions, and so when they do, they end up coming up with a lot of answers and some changes that need to be made. If you'll notice 4631, this is an additional $6 million for state airports. In this current fiscal year, we've already at $6 million, so this additional $6 million, we are probably way behind every other state in funding our state airports. This gets us a little closer, but we're still not there. To make sure that those needs are met. That is the biggest economic development engine in so many parts of the state, so that people can fly in and fly out, those executives, and for tourism. It brings people into our state, to different communities across the state, so we need to make sure that's there. We're asking that $500,000 of that be directed to the Richard B. Russell Regional Airport in Floyd County. Katie Dempsey came to us, and they're developing an avionics and aviation maintenance program for their technical school. But in order for that program to be successful, they've got to have some improvements there at their airport. So we'll redirect a portion of that there, and the other $5.5 million will go all across the state, along with the other $6 million that was provided last year. Local Road Assistance Program. This is something your county commissioners call every one of you about every day. We're asking you to add $4.7 million to that. That is an immediate need as we have transportation issues across the state that are backlogged. This will hopefully help to relieve some of that backlog. $4.7 million. Payments to State Road and Tollway Authority, $400,000 for a sound barrier on Georgia 400. This is requested by Chairman Joe Wilkinson. His actual cost is $825,000. $425,000 will come from existing money within the Tollway Authority, and they just need an additional $400,000 to meet the need of that sound barrier. 4681, redirect existing bond fund for Lovejoy Brain Train. You'll see that there's $1.5 million. We're asking you to redirect that to the Brain Train. This $500,000 to be used for the study so that they can look and see as we're moving forward. If we're going to do commuter rail, one of the things we have to have is studies. What this is not saying yes or no. This is saying allow them to update those studies and look at it using existing money that's been expended a long time ago to Lovejoy, but it's never been spent. It's just sitting there. So we're asking you to redirect that money here today. Next up, you'll see redirect bond funding for St. Mary's 4682, St. Mary's Railroad and Southeast Georgia Joint Development Authority in Wayne County for sidetracks to enable trains to pass. Again, this is redirecting bond money. It's not new money, so we're asking you to support that. 4691, this is provide funds to replace 8 facilities that have exceeded their usefulness with DOT. We have said no to that at this time, and that's the money we've used for LARP and some of the other programs you'll see in here. We felt like those were more pressing needs that needed to be met, and we are asking you to support that redirection. That's it. There are no more changes in this document, and Mr. Chairman, I will yield for questions.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, I don't see any questions. You must have done a really good job. Does anybody have a button that I'm not seeing up here? Okay. Representative Royal.
Mr. Chairman,
yes,
on
sir.
page 28, item 23.4.1, the $5 million addition, would that be available for existing charter schools also?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
The intention to have things existing and those coming online. This is a statewide program. We think charter schools are a good program, and we want to help those that are there to meet the needs, and we want to help those that are coming online. And this is equipment purchases and things sometimes that are not covered.
Thank you very much.
Chair sees no further questions. Recognizes Representative Roberts for a motion. There's a motion. Is there a second? There's a motion and a second to do pass House Bill 94. Any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed by saying no. House Bill 94 passes this committee on to the full House. Thank you. This meeting is adjourned.